So I want to welcome you to the ice cream interviews.
Thank you.
Okay. The ice cream is basically, it represents innocence. It represents fun. It represents honesty. And it represents authenticity. And since I've known you, there's no one else like you. I've never met someone else like you.
Likewise.
So welcome to the ice cream interviews.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers. Do people actually,
Can I eat
ask
it
you
now?
what do you do for a, do they ask you what do you really do for a living?
Yeah, I was asked that question a lot, like when you say you're an artist, people say, but what's your real job? You know, what do you really do? And we spoke about it earlier on. You're losing chocolate.
Yeah, I'm picking it up from the floor. So what is your real job?
Making stuff.
Yeah, but making trouble or making
artwork.
Making art? Do you think that's maybe trouble?
Sometimes. Yeah, no, I think I kind of like just decided to do it. And I think it's the most freeing thing for me personally to be an artist, you know. Challenging and freeing at the same time.
You really like that ice cream?
Getting the hang of it.
Have you ever read the book, The Artist's Way?
No.
So in this book, the author says that everyone's creative. And it's pretty important, it's like breathing, for everyone to engage in that creativity. It makes you whole as a person. Do you feel that way? Or do you think it's only the talented few that's got the ability to express themselves through art?
To a certain degree, people have the ability imbued in them to do certain things, but they don't have something driving them to occupy themselves doing that all the time. So I think the obsessive nature of an artist, they become really good at something they become obsessed with, or that they keep doing and practicing. So yes and no, obviously it's maybe a little bit of the nurture versus nature. So maybe there's a lot of genes involved, and so I'm not 100% sure. I'm just saying, I think it's something that a lot of people probably have different talents they don't have, but they don't have that drive to pursue that certain thing, or you have a drive to pursue, you know, being an actor, or, you know, so not necessarily something else, you know.
Yeah, sure. But you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He reckons it's like I believe we all need to meditate to keep our minds healthy, to clear your mind. So he reckons it's the same thing. It's
Yeah,
you
I
have
do
to
feel, you know, there's definitely a meditative state that you do into, especially in creating certain artworks and certain stages of those creation moments. There's a moment where you kind of like, you forget about everything else and you focused on only that one thing. I think that's what I also enjoy about it.
Yeah.
You know, it's because I think my brain is automatically very scattered, and it kind of like focuses it down to just one, you know, singular form of paintbrush, or, you know, having clay in your hand, or, you know.
Yeah, and it's something that you need to develop. It took me a while to realize we shouldn't half-ass our talents.
Yeah, I think
obviously you realized you've got a talent, and then you develop that talent. So it doesn't come overnight.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think I had to obviously aspire to be able to achieve something, you know, in the sense of my ability. And from a technical point of view, that's always been quite important for me, you know. So I think I've always challenged myself in that aspect as well, trying to make better work and trying to make that communication vehicle more powerful, in making it more, you know, impressive to view in a way. You know, your message almost becomes a little bit more concrete in that way.
What's the most important message through a specific piece for you that you ever try to convey to the person that experiences that art? Your art.
Yeah, I think.
And don't be so serious. This is.
Am I serious?
Me too.
So,
but let's not be so serious.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's go like breathe a bit. Go like.
I don't have a one particular specific message I'm trying to convey. I think I'm at the same time kind of like on a discovery of these different things that I'm faced with dealing with, you know, creating images. And I think the messages kind of like seep through that and become concrete to me, but they're not initially this idea that falls out of the sky that I want to kind of like try and encapsulate. Yeah.
So there's not one series that you did that you think like, gosh, I wanted to bring across the fact that people should love each other more, or that we are one consciousness, one love, one, that we are responsible for each other in deeper ways, and that the universe is connected in more ways than we would ever understand. So
yeah, sure.
Like that,
it's difficult to say that in one picture, I suppose, you know, and the idea of us as universal beings, you know, in the sense that, you know, when you remove all the attachments to us, we are all just human beings with these with emotions and things. And I think that's sometimes what I feel that I want to convey, the idea of us as humans, our experiences in a way.
Yeah, because all your work's mostly about human beings.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say there's definitely like a universal idea of us as humans and translating that in different ways. And we all have a connection to that. Well, what I feel is I can connect to that, and trying to make it more universal for everyone to kind of like connect to a person rather than it being too subjective. Yeah. So I think the models become a little bit anonymous in a way. They're not really. It's not a portrait of that specific person as a documentation. It's more of a expression, you know, and using that image.
And there's also a sense of trying to create some empathy with, what do you call a person that looks at your art?
A viewer.
I feel it. That's
a human being.
A human being. Yeah, I obviously call it an experience. See, this is the fun part of the ice cream interview, because now your beard's full of ice cream and it keeps you humble. Huh?
You want to wipe?
I'm not going to wipe your face.
I'll wipe my own face.
Just wipe your own face. Yeah, so I also know you as someone that's, but you're always busy. You're always busy. You either sculpt or you paint, or you delve in editing, you delve in all things creative, and I find it super inspiring. Is it easy to cross the mediums
No, I think once you understand or get used to your own personal flow of creativity and kind of like see that you can translate one thing into a different thing using the same ability but just in a different medium, applying it, you know. It feels to me that it becomes natural expression or something, but you do need time on certain things. Like I do play around with a bit of, you know, film and editing, but, you know, I feel like I'm a beginner, but I love that process. You know, the more and more I explore it, the more I become closer to what to be able to kind of like handle your tools in a way.
So you don't think all paintings should tell a story, or should it sometimes just be there for the aesthetic beauty of it?
Well, no, I do have, you know, concepts that I work with exhibitions. Like one of my latest shows was called Veil, and it had to do with a lot of the veil that's kind of like in between, you know, different things, or the veil being revealed or unveiled, or things that are veiled, you know, in a certain sense. So there's definitely this a concept running through the series of works that I do, but they all essentially form part of a bigger idea, you know, that's all kind of like connected in a way.
Like, how big is that idea?
Infinite.
Infinite. That's it, so yeah.
No, I think creativity is infinite. Yeah.
So you know the sign for the center of creativity is just that circle with a dot in the middle.
Okay.
People also believe that that's the sign. If you had to put a symbol to God, that would be the symbol, because that's the center of creativity, and it just expands.
Wow, that's cool. It's like a yin and the yang kind of thing, but not.
Not.
Circle with dot.
With a dot in the middle.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. What does art do for you? If you like wake up in the morning, what does art do for you?
That's a good question. I think I'm compelled to create on various levels. I think maybe I think it does something to my soul, I suppose, you know, physically and mentally. It kind of like, you know, I think when I don't do it for a while, I feel a little bit uncomfortable in a way, you know.
What do you mean, like depressed?
No, not depressed. Like I want to do something, make something, you know, or stop.
Do you get depressed? Do you work from a dark side sometimes?
Yeah, well, I think everybody has some kind of dark side lingering somewhere.
Not me.
Yes, I think, I suppose I do have a little bit of a side that one could delve into that goes a bit dark, you know. Well, but, you know, I don't intentionally try and do like things. I just kind of like do them, and whatever happens, you know.
Okay. How do you get to a place where you work from such a big studio? I mean, your studio's here in Port Island. It's massive.
Part of play, yeah.
I mean, on the Garden Route, I meet artists there, and I go like, oh, yeah, I'm friends with Lionel Smit. And they've got these little shacks and huts and whatever. And they go like, no, and I go like, yeah, you guys must see his studio. The one side he sculpts, and the other side he does that, and it's like a big warehouse. How do you get to a stage where you just go like, gosh, and you've got like staff that you employ to do your exports and your shipping, and it's incredible, man.
Yeah, thanks. I basically, it's one thing leads to the other, you know. So I started in a garage painting, and then after a couple of years, I got a double garage and started, you know, just work there.
How old were you then?
I was probably about 16.
Okay. Yeah, because you went to art school.
Yeah, so I went to art school, and then I started working in my room at first.
So you started working
in my room on the floor, and then I moved into like the kitchen area, dining area that was like a extension of our kitchen that wasn't used. So I worked on the floor there for like a little while, and then eventually I kind of like started occupying like a...
So how old were you when you sold your first painting?
Yeah, I was probably about 16.
Who bought it? Your dad?
Eh?
Who bought it? Your dad?
Yeah, he actually did, seized some of the works. But yeah, I still have some of those early works from then, yeah.
So you were 16 when you sold your first work?
Well, no, I'm saying when I kind of like probably started taking it more serious, the idea of painting, you know. But I think, I painted, throughout my life, but not really anything that
so obviously your dad's a professional artist as well, but did that inspire you in some way?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I grew up around his studio, so I think there were always creative people around. That's the one big thing that my father kind of like always invited people to stay over and live, and, kind of invited this kind of like bohemian artistic lifestyle on the one side with like a family on the other side, and every night at dinner would be a dinner with a different artist visiting, or there's always someone almost in residence at our house, so I think in those people all kind of like I think rubbed off on me, and I became friends with them that I've been friends with my whole life, kind of apprentices also and things, and I think that environment obviously made me who I am today.
So no. And the business side of art?
Yeah, I think my father has a very good business sense of, with kind of like seeing what he did all these years and how you kind of like, I mean, it's not rocket science, like invite a few people, buy a couple of bottles of wine, put your art out there, and then, do it. So when eventually I started doing that in school, with like friends, and we'd get a whole bunch of people together, and we'd make invites, and we'd keep doing that, for...
insane.
I probably had about 5 or 6 big exhibitions.
It's like auctions.
Get the people drunk and sell it. In school, where I would just like organize these exhibitions at my dad's ex-studio, because he had a different studio then, and and I kind of like started occupying his old studio spaces. So,
Did you rent it from him?
No, from my mother. My mother was living there then, so I rented from her. And I organized all these exhibitions and things, and started quite young because I was also kind of like, trying to just survive and do my thing, and, so I think that ambition to just work myself out and be independent was very evident, since a young age, I suppose, Yeah,
wow. So that's how many years have you been doing this?
30,
most of your life,
30
actually.
years, whatever.
Did you ever ride a skateboard and go fishing?
I did a lot of skateboarding. I used to be quite a bit of a skater.
How high can you ollie?
Yeah, I was pretty, I don't know, high.
Over a dustbin?
Yeah, well, maybe just not.
And did you have a half pipe?
No, I was more into kind of like tricks and stuff like that. I used to be like, go with the village kids, we all kind of like form gangs and go to town in Pretoria and go to the State Theatre and places like that. And so that was always kind of like the misfits, of the group, which ended up being a lot of creative people as well. So it's interesting how that also kind of like happens, Skateboarding and...
Yeah, because I see this with the skateboard back in the studio.
Yeah.
Insane. I mean, if you walk in the waterfront, people go like, hey, there's Lionel Smit.
No way. I'm glad art not that interesting.
But it's happened.
To people. Oh, yeah, on the odd occasion it's happened. But I mean, I don't think art is that mainstream for people.
And if you walk in New York?
Yeah, no, I mean,
Have you ever walked in New York and people go, "Hey, there's Lionel Smit"?
I was once in a lift in New York, and I actually
Do you want to tell the story on camera, though?
told someone that, you know, this lady is very drunk in Afrikaans, and she turned around and she said, you know, sorry, I am very drunk, but back in Afrikaans in New York. And the next morning I went down, and they were busy taking out their luggage, and I was, you know, helping them after I told them, you know, they were drunk in their face. And as I was standing chatting to them in the foyer, just like, where you from? And they were like living in Switzerland, but South African Afrikaans, my sculpture was arriving because I needed to ship it somewhere in New York, whatever. And then the one lady said, what is a Lionel Smit sculpture doing in the foyer? You know, and I said, well, that's me, you know. So it was funny, they actually knew who I was. But apart from that, yeah, I don't
So you
know.
insulted the people.
Yeah, I know.
And then you went like, do you know who I am?
But yeah, I'm glad, because I think your art's not that popular that you can become super famous and people like you.
No, not at all.
You know,
it's
you're always
such
on TV. People always see your face.
No, but I mean, this is in South Africa. There's 70 million. There's probably now 80 million people that don't know who I am, because I mostly work in Afrikaans, or I used to work in Afrikaans.
Yeah.
And,
It's true.
you know, so there's.
Yeah.
It's all relevant and it's all so fake, man. It's not real.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. I think a lot of people think...
It's the same with you. I mean, something comes through you and you set it free.
Yeah.
Same with acting, is it comes through you and you set it free and you don't look at it again, or you don't look. If you go, I don't look at my own stuff. I think the last time I watched something was like that I did was probably 15 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think we're supposed to.
Yeah, I
look at
don't
it
watch
again,
anything,
you know?
that. Yeah, I mean, I obviously have to look at the paintings, but yeah, I know what you mean. It's weird. Yeah, I think art is not, you know, that popular, so it's fine.
I think it is.
Yeah, well, I want to think that it is, but yeah, I think art has become much more popular the last 20 years.
Do you think so?
Yeah, definitely.
Why do you think so?
I mean, for various reasons. I mean,
Because life's becoming more liberal. So people have more to say.
well,
More
look, I
people are
think
allowed to say more.
Since apartheid, art was kind of like a little bit, you know, held back, you know, and then eventually it got these.
Oh, you're talking about in South Africa?
Yeah.
Okay, this is interesting.
Yeah, and then it kind of like after that it had this release of expansion and everything, and that slowly kind of like grew. And I think like Cape Town wasn't very much on the map art-wise, but I think the big influx of international, you know, people coming to Cape Town and the need and the interest it created made the whole art industry boom, yeah, you know. So I think in the last 10 years, like there's 2 new museums being built, built, and you know, the whole industry, you know, is just booming. You know, it's become a art city, you know, with Franschhoek completely on its own. And
Just before COVID, I did a Pepsi ad with an artist from Nigeria, and he was the main guy in the Pepsi ad. And now Pepsi ads are
huge, yeah.
You know, that's like super famous people that appears in this. And I got to the set and I went like, hey, how are you? And then I Googled the guy and I went like, what?
Yeah.
Massive, man. Millions and millions of followers and from Nigeria. So the whole African thing, yeah. I mean, I've met some great artists in South Africa. And it's amazing that you say in the past, you know, since apartheid, so we have more to say then.
Yeah, I mean, we've been closed off kind of like, and very, you know, there wasn't much.
Yeah, I remember the popular paintings were like all landscapes.
Yeah, I know.
You know, with those old frames and whatever, and it's super depressing.
And I think to a certain extent, you know, the problem with our culture is that because we're so fresh, you know, we're still very conservative to a big extent, you know. people mostly. From an art point of view, they're not very educated from that point of view just in the normal sense of, going to visit museums and things like that. We're not used to that. Europeans do that all the time and stuff. But
Do you think it's a very first world thing, art?
Probably.
Do you think it's
No, I think it's just, art probably originated from Africa anyway. I don't know. But I think because people originated from Africa, I think, right.
Do you think it's a luxury for the rich?
Mm-hmm. No. I think there's this broad
museums
spectrum,
are probably
broad spectrum
galleries
of different arts. I think the elite, obviously, the percentages become very, very low. There's a handful of artists that become very well known, and then that's just kind of like the way the system kind of like produces it in a way. I don't know how it works really.
Yeah, because it's not, and art's not cheap, making art is not cheap. I mean, the process of casting a sculpture and going bronze and
I think sculpture specifically is a very expensive process, and it's very difficult for young artists to kind of like start off working in bronze and all those things. So they kind of like have to start working with alternative materials, which is quite interesting. I think that's where there's so little sculptors always around, because it's such a tedious process, and also making a living off that is also very difficult, that investment you have to make into the work itself.
but paint, everything, canvases.
I mean, paint is you can take a bit of paint and put it on a canvas, but a bronze costs you tens, thousands of hundreds of thousands of rand just to produce, the artwork.
But then you sell it for $1 million.
I wish, I think it becomes, you'll be surprised, the rate of how much you end up making and how much the bronze costs, the whole equation is...
I think we've had this conversation before, is like royalties on art. If I buy something from you today for $100, that's your $100, and then you're going to pay your paints with it, your whatever, your brushes, your cloths, then I buy it and I go sell it for $150. You don't see the profit on that, like royalties, like music or whatever, because you're still the artist of that work.
Yeah, I know. They have done it in certain countries where you get you get a rebate or whatever back to the artist, but that's just that's a very unregulated world, the art world. So there's a lot of things that you could say it's like buying stocks. You're buying a stock into something that's not really big, and then it becomes big, so your stock grows, and then you sell it. Then no one says, "Give me."
So I think it was Janku de Beer that I said that when we had that conversation, he said, "But that's not the purpose of art, is to set it free."
Yeah.
And then not worry about that.
Yeah, I know. I don't, think
it would be nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you maybe think that one day when you're not here anymore, I know you're going to become very old, and that your work might go for billions because it's a Lionel Smit?
I don't know.
And Lionel's dead now. Now it's like suddenly double the price.
I don't think anybody knows, because, you have Trechikov, no one ever thought that his work would be worth a lot. Otherwise, people would have bought it left, right, center. But it became kind of like just... And then eventually, suddenly, it became popular again. And then instead of getting a couple of hundred, now you can get a couple of million for the same painting. Yeah. So I don't think you really know what the popularity will be. But, could be 10 years after you're dead, suddenly somewhere it becomes popular again, I don't know. But I don't know.
Who's your favorite artist?
Well, that's difficult. So
Favorite three?
Favorite three? Well, I used to grow up with a lot of classical inspiration, like, Caravaggio, it's very kind of like very classical painting, and And then, you know, contemporary people like Lucian Freud is very figurative, and Francis Bacon, who had a bit of that other darker side to it, and abstract, and yeah, various people. But yeah, I enjoy a lot of figurative work mostly, and well, I also have a lot of abstract work that I like, that I actually buy. So I'm very eclectic in that sense, I think, what I like from an art perspective. But those are some of the arts that inspired.
Okay, so you invest in art as well?
Yeah, a lot of the stuff, is kind of like stuff that I have bought over the years or whatever. Just, I don't know, something that I like to do, you know, is buy works of art. I think it's inspiring as well to have other artists work around you, you know.
Do you ever barter?
Yes, for sure.
Who do you barter with? Like Banksy. I'll barter Banksy for some work.
I've bartered other cool artworks that people just own, you know, for other artwork of mine, but not with like super famous artists or anything, you know. So I mean, a couple of peers and so on. You know,
you know, I've got an unfinished work of you.
Oh yeah,
I remember that.
I remember now.
Yeah, it's on my wall. And you know how that happened? Actually, in this room.
Oh yeah.
But you know, I'm not drinking anymore.
Yeah, we painted, but I don't remember what happened with that.
Who's the most famous person that's ever bought your art?
Sure. I don't know. There are a couple of people, but no, I don't know.
One American celebrity.
One American person. I think Louis C.K. or was it? Who is that guy?
I'm so glad you don't care about stuff like this.
Yeah, I don't remember. I'm trying to remember.
But
now.
Robin Sharma, the author, is
Sharma.
one of your collectors.
Robin Sharma is a collector of my work.
Does he send you a book after you sent him his?
He actually, he does
sign it for you.
Yeah,
thanks for my painting.
Yeah, he does actually always send me a book with his thing in. Yeah,
I know this book is not worth $1 million.
Yeah, he wrote something in a book about me, which was quite cool. But he kind of like discovered me about, probably 10 years ago or so, and kind of like slowly started buying, and just we've ever kind of like stayed in contact. So,
insane, eh? Any musos, actors buying your stuff?
Black Coffee is bought all my work.
Oh wow!
He's South African. I don't know. I can't think now.
No, you're very shy. Eh? You're very camera shy. I love it.
I really can't remember now, but anyway.
I know of all the people so far of the ice cream interview, you just melt into this very humble little Thundercat teddy bear.
Thundercat.
Very humble. Yeah?
Yeah, so, I don't know, but I'll think about it.
When's your next exhibition? I'm trying to get this conversation going, but
in July.
Is there something you want to talk about?
August.
Is there something you want to tell me?
No.
What's the worst you've ever felt in your life? Mentally.
Sure, yeah, I've been, I think when I just moved to Cape Town, wanting to kind of like start off doing my thing here, and I kind of like just left everything and moved here just to kind of like, I felt like I wanted to kind of like start a fresh slate and kind of like away from all my comfort zones at home. And I think, then I kind of like, it was a lot more difficult than I thought. And I think I kind of like thought, I was kind of like down and out.
Do you think it's change that's
It's a lot of different
that you struggled with
I
this
think also the
change.
fact that I moved, there wasn't really a big industry, in art. Where there were a handful of galleries around. Now there are all hundreds of galleries.
Look at where you now.
So
look at what change does now.
Yeah, I think in that sense, it kind of like made me a little bit tough, and I needed to work and kind of like work myself away from my...
made you more resilient.
So I think,
more like
focused
and more
focused in that sense that I really, really wanted to achieve, not being a failure.
So now you realize that the change was good. That we should embrace change as human beings.
I think, and I kind of like, when you grow up, you kind of like don't necessarily think, I want to move away from it. Well, you do sometimes, but it's quite a scary thought if everything is not...
I think it's a scary thought.
Especially
as an artist,
you also did that.
Not to change.
When did you move away from your hometown?
Quite a few times in my life.
Yeah.
Big moves.
Yeah.
There's mental reasons for that as well, which you always work on. But where I'm now, I'm absolutely whole, and I accept the change, and I accept the suffering that goes with the change.
Yeah.
Because that's
part of it.
Part of it. You know? And that's where we as artists get our inspiration from. It makes us feel alive. I look at people sometimes, and I people in 9-to-5s and people in corporate jobs where it's basically a spreadsheet that they chasing, And for me, I'm not built that way. I'll get bored super quickly.
Exactly.
I'll actually get depressed very, very quickly. And so I mean, look at what your change and your fear, overcoming your fear has done.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just about Lionel Smit anymore. It's about you employing other people, you looking after other families as well, Isn't that a great feeling?
Yeah, I mean, it's good, and obviously, if you want to do big shows and kind of like have a big team to help you do that, you obviously need the people. So you kind of like, you either have to get all those people to help you put up these things, or you should decide to, downscale, and it's a different way of seeing things, pros and cons, I suppose. But I think I naturally want to expand, so I find myself expanding, and saying, well, let's make the studio bigger, let's get a bigger canvas, let's make a bigger sculpture,
But I do believe now that that's what we are made for.
Yeah.
In a mind, body, soul level, we need to be better tomorrow than today.
Yeah, I think that's basically...
Also in your occupation for us, I think for us as artists, it's great. I started painting now, and we spoke about it yesterday as well, but just my commitment now to become a better artist in that, and the reason why it makes me more whole.
Yeah.
I've got this thing, lady, where I say, you become. You become, I think, do you believe?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you believe.
Yeah, no, I definitely think there's...
So, in terms of that, that's all the things, not half-arsing stuff, It's the stuff that makes you become a better person, and grabbing onto your God-given talents. And develop that and the skill.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's so interesting. What I want to say is so interesting that you saying that you still have that feeling of, hey, let's build a bigger studio.
Yeah, I mean,
and employ more people. That's insane.
Yeah, no, yeah. I think the idea of stretching your boundaries is something that I always try and do in a certain sense, So I think that's also one of the reasons I started painting very big and abstract, and, because I forced myself to do things that I wasn't necessarily comfortable in doing. I painted very small with kind of like very muted colors, and then I, just said, well, now I need to do the complete opposite, in a very progressive, slowly progressing in that way. And I think that's kind of like probably how I've had my mindset, is to do scary things, and the younger you are, it feels like the more scarier things you do sometimes,
Oh. It's always nice spending time with you, eh?
Thanks.
I walk into the studio and, I stayed here before and I stayed here last night as well, but I get this absolutely inspiring feeling always when I walk into your studio, and that's your energy that rubs off to the place and stuff. And you kind of like look, you're in daai woord, enigma. There's a verskrikkelike enigma, and it's very intriguing, and I know a lot of other people love coming here, other artists. You've done a lot of work and collabs with musicians and actors and stuff. Is this something that comes naturally to you, or is it just kind of your kindness is something that I can learn from, without a doubt. You're one of the kindest people that I know.
Well, thank you. I think partly that environment that I grew up in, where there were always this community of people and artists coming and going. I think it kind of like became a natural thing to kind of like have people kind of like come into the space and get involved in some way and go again. That's kind of like something I've been used to. So I think it's natural to me in a way.
You had enough now of this interview, eh?
Does it say that on my face?
Listen, it's been great.
Very cool, thanks.
Yeah, I love you to the moon. I love you to the moon and back, man.
I do just tend to look very serious, that's all, once I get in front of a camera. I've heard that before with interviews, like, listen, chill out a bit.
One philosophy, then we...
What's my philosophy?
Then we go have a tea.
I think, what you said,
Not what I said.
No, to
What's
connect
your philosophy?
what you said is that every day just do that thing that you do as best as you can, and I think it's not that easy, Make one drawing a day. How long can it take you to make a drawing? 15 minutes. By the end of the year, you'll have 365 pages like this, but do it. There's a difference in actually doing it, and
the commitment, the drive.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's life.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think that's the difference between sometimes that little bit extra that you do, but consistency.
Sure. Consistency, no? I like what you're saying.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, it's that the sooner you realize life is difficult, the happier you'll be.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ivan.